So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Rahim Gulamali with another episode of My Two Cents podcast. This week we are going to talk about a bit of an inspirational view on life, an inspirational view on how you can build your own life. And I have a special co-host this week. Jordi is joining us. Jordi, can you tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you for having me here. My name is Jordi Miró. I'm currently CTO at the Hotels Network. I've been working in technology businesses for the last 20-something years in Spain, Latin America, United States, and back in Europe. And that's the only thing I know a little bit. Aside from that, I'm happily married with 3 kids, which is the best business or startup I have ever built.
I love it. I love it. I think that you're right. We tend to lose ourselves in work. At least I have done it in the past, working 80, 90 hours a week. But family and kids are the power, are the key driver behind me, myself, and of course also you. Hey, we talked about a few weeks ago. We talked about life and life, business life versus the life you wish you would had. I mentioned to you that I lost myself in years. I've been working 80 hours a week, traveling the world. And like someone in the past said to me, Rahim, you're really living the dream. The dream doesn't mean, by the way, for the people who are not English, the dream doesn't mean you're really living a dream, but your life is actually being lived by your work. You made a different choice, and there's a bit of a background on that one, the background story on why you made that choice. You started last time by talking about your father and your family.
Yeah, I mean, I feel always been influenced by my family. My family is everything, and my family was my parents, my siblings, and myself, and then it evolved to my own family.
Mm-hmm.
And the values and lessons learned from them, I think that you take them, you learn from them, you assume part of them as part of yours, you discard others, and with age, you learn to understand better your parents, things that you might have not understood. Now, as a parent, they make sense. I have always had a very close relationship with my parents, especially with my mom. We are like same thing, temperamental, uh, explosive lovers. But with my dad, who is much more rational, I wouldn't say it was tough, but it is true. We sometimes we didn't understand each other, and he has got an amazing career. I would love to have a career as successful as him, but I learned that my career had to be another one. But I would have to learn some of the lessons from him. And over time, I think we got to a point not of respect, but mutual admiration from both. I mean, he only worked at the company, but he went from being an intern to be the CEO of one of the largest companies in Spain in the oil industry. I will never do that. I have already gone through several companies, my own, working for others, and so. But there are a lot of lessons you can learn from there, and one of them is you need passion, you need hard work, but you need to know what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I discovered entrepreneurship years ago, and that's what keeps me alive. It is true that I need a partner and a family that support my crazy moments of starting things again, rather than looking for a traditional, more comfortable job style. But if I take all the learnings I was given, the education, which is the best things my parent gave me, it's an amazing education, and try to pass that into my kids. No, with that, I think it's a matter of you trying to find out what you want to be in life and pursue it.
Yeah, I think that's a really important one. But the challenge is when you're young, you actually not always know what you want to get out of life. Look at me. My mom was a doctor. My dad was a businessman. There are two different ways of doing things. We were when we were young, we were pushed in respect to the times were really different for my parents. They didn't have all the luxury. They didn't have all the pros of living in a world like we live now, a diverse and inclusive world. It wasn't diverse and inclusive. So we were told that we had to work twice as hard, and that was vision. The vision was you have to work twice as hard to achieve the same thing as the guy next to you. Even I had it at school. That at a certain point, the teacher said to me, "Look, um, you will have it more difficult in the world living here in Europe than those two other guys. So when they get 7 grades, 8 grades, you need to have a 9 or a 10 at least, if you want to achieve what they will achieve in the future." So that whole mindset has pushed me myself into continuously looking to perform more and better, etc., etc. That was always my drive. I came to the conclusion at a certain point that, and actually quite late, by the way. I think I was 35 that I figured out that I need to live life and not the dream. But it took me an additional 10 years before I moved to Spain and dropped everything, quit my job, and started doing something else and living life. What I liked last time we were talking about life choices. Again, when you're young, you don't know what your life choices are. You don't know where you're going. You have an idea, you have ambition, you want to go for it. But changing that life perspective, making a choice of what life would mean for you, you ultimately started building your own values around that. And from those values, you build out the way you look at life. Can you talk a little bit about that in how you engaged in that, how you figured that out?
So I think it comes from, I studied physics, and I've always looked at I've been always very logical. I mean, I need data in order to take decisions. I'm very bad at taking decisions, gut decisions. And I always knew one thing. As you said, things have changed a lot. I mean, we are a generation who have seen a lot of changes, even myself. I mean, I see the life we were having when I was a kid in Spain and the life my brother had. We are 7 years apart, with Spain entering the European Union, and it changed everything. Our life was completely different. My family benefited from the rise of Spain in Europe. And my mom had always in her lap, she's a scientist, and at home, a sentence from Mrs. Wheaton that says that a woman has to work twice in order to be recognized half. Unfortunately, that's not difficult. So imagine waking up and seeing that every day. So that's the type of spirit we had at home. I wanted a good life. And by good, what does it mean? That I don't live my life to work. I work to live. And I had plenty of discussions around this with my parents, my grandpa, and my wife when we were about to be engaged. I was living in London, and the weekend my grandparents came to visit me, and my wife was there to visit me. And she laughed, and my grandma used to laugh at me and my grandfather discussing about this. And I would also say, well, I work because I'm not rich, and I need to pay my credit card, my loans, my mortgage, and everything. So I need to find a work that fulfills me, because I need to be fulfilled mentally and professionally, that pays me enough to live the type of life I want. And unfortunately, I would say have expensive tastes that you refine over years, but it means that then you have to make choices. So I did a lot of consulting in my early years, working, I don't know how many hours, but a lot. I liked the job. I learned a lot, and I was well paid. But I realized that was not what I wanted to do. But while figuring out the type of life, the type of work that I wanted to do, it allowed me to buy my first apartment at 25, to be capable of traveling and do what I wanted. But I realized that I didn't want to work until 3 a.m. every day and work weekends. That was not what I wanted. And even though my consulting career was successful, I decided to quit. I decided to move to Venezuela with my wife, which was a crazy and bold move in 2005. but when you're in love, you do crazy things. That's
Sure.
a fact. Uh,
Sure.
and it started my entrepreneurial career, my freedom. I think that when you're 30 or less, you're crazy enough to take a lot of risks. First, because you can, because you're still in that age where you can make mistakes and you have time to recover. And secondly, because, well, I wanted to give it a try. It was not as successful as I imagined, but I had those values, I had those learnings, I had those um, strengths to keep pushing. I have a family that supported me, and it is true that if I might not have someone that could support me in my bad moments, maybe I would have quit. That is true. But I decided to go for it. I decided to push until the moment I could not push more. And that is a very difficult moment. It's one to say no, because you're always in love with your project, but you need to learn. So not taking the most obvious decisions, sometimes it's the most complicated thing, because the most obvious decisions, and I'm pretty sure everyone has, throughout those moments, I had very good business proposals or job offers, more, I would say, standard, conservative, well paid, that would have brought more stability to myself and my family. But they felt like being in a golden cage.
Yeah. I
And
think I
unfortunately,
agree. I agree with you. Look, it's there's one hand on one side we have the stability we're seeking for ourselves before our family. On the other hand, we have the ambitions we have for our future. And there are two types of ambitions. There could be a work ambition, a growth ambition, but there's also a personal ambition. One thing I like what you said is there's a moment that you have to tell yourself, no. There's a moment that you have to find, okay, until here and not further, and then take the next step. And I think that a lot of people are struggling. We had a short chat before around people switching jobs or not willing to switch job or afraid to switch jobs because now in these times it's uncertain. Things are uncertain, so we're looking for stability. On the other hand, there's also an opportunity when you know where you want to be in the future, know what you want to be. And what I get from your story is that you figured out what you probably didn't want, and you turn it around to what you actually did want. So there was actually a bit of a strategy you built for yourself.
there has always been a strategy, even from when I decided to study physics and not aeronautical engineering. It was clear that I wanted to do something around science, because that my whole life I was much better in science than any other thing at school, and I liked it. And my parents were smart enough to guide me, because fortunately I could, let's say, study mostly anything in Spain. I had the grades to do so. And they presented me with friends of them, engineers, physics, chemists. My parents are both chemists and they studied chemistry and pharmacy. Well, my father didn't finish pharmacy. He's got like 2 or 3 lessons to be done. And by talking to them, I realized that it was the science behind. So I said, okay, let's do physics. All throughout my career, what I knew very fast is what I didn't like. And I knew one thing: I had to be good at it, but I should excel at what I'm best at. So try to minimize those weak points, but try to strengthen your stronger points. And that, at the end, and flexibility and trying to adapt, shapes who you want to be and where you want to be. I mean, not everyone is suited with a similar type of skills to be in the same place. I think I would not have done good in a corporate environment for who I am, how I want to do things, and how I want to evolve. The same way, not everyone is suited to start a new venture or be an entrepreneur. So I think it is, and then if we take it to what I do, which is technology, which is a very lucky business because there's no unemployment, there's a lack of talent. You need to figure out what you want to do, where you want to be, and try to create a plan and a strategy to move. Try to find mentors, people who help you, try to find the resources. And since it's a constantly evolving environment, you need to keep learning. I was not a very good, I was a very good student, but I didn't like to study. My parents would be crazy at me because I would drop books as soon as possible. I didn't like the formal studying. That's why I don't have an MBA or something similar. I don't see myself sitting there and studying. I like to practice. I don't like reading as much as I do other things, but I know I need to keep learning. So I need to find ways for me to learn and improve as a human being and as a professional. So you start mixing all that, your weaknesses, your strengths, what you want to do, where you are. It's very important to know also where you are, because if you are in the middle of nowhere and the opportunities you're seeking are not there, you either accept that and you leave that path, or you move yourself to another place. And of course, you need to count with a little bit of luck. Of course, you need that. But you put all that together in the mixer, you shake it, and you hope for it to be good. And if not, like with cocktails, you keep practicing until you get the recipe right.
I like this. I like the point on life learning. It's actually quite a similar experience I had in the past. I didn't like school. I didn't like school, but the reason for that I didn't like school is that what we were taught at school was for me too abstract. It was a method. It gave you a bit of a foundation, but it didn't give me any interest because it was not something I could bring into practice. It was not something I could do anything with except hitting my grades in the hope I could get to a certain school, a certain direction, etc., etc. My parents found it important, so I'm glad they pushed me. Because if they didn't push me, I probably would have been a dropout at an early age. I really would have been a dropout. But I agree with you, it's a life learning. The things I learned, and if people will look at my LinkedIn, they will think, what the fuck? And I can say that because it's my 2 cents. I'm allowed to swear a little bit. If you don't like it, just beep it for yourself. But what people will say is, look, you have been in finance in the beginning of the career. Then you move to sales. Then you move to operations. Now you're in a transformation. The thing I found out over my career, and it took me some time, is there was a red line from the beginning of my career to the end. One, yeah, I've got a financial background. I studied finance, business economics, but I learned over the years from how do you call it? I call it spot learning. Damn, there's a new challenge. Instead of asking everyone how do we solve it, I first thought, okay, let me do an online course. Let me read a book. Let me understand better what the topic is. And that investigation, that continuously urge of gaining knowledge actually has helped me through my career. I think that's also the reason why a lot of people, this is not me saying that, but look at my LinkedIn, a lot of references, they say, look, if you look at Rahim, he is really good in organizational change, and not just because he has been running change for all those years, but he has been doing all those jobs over those years. I believe that every 7 years you need to reinvent yourself. And that's also what I did in my career. So I'm 25 years working. I did about 7-8 years of finance. I did 7-8 years of sales. I did 7-8 years of operations. And now the last 4 years, I'm busy with transformation. So every 7 years, I try to reinvent myself, but I keep learning. That's a perspective you also put in. If you look at people now, you go to school, you study for something. 9 of the 10 people, I'm estimating, by the way, these are not fixed statistics, but 9 of the 10 people I know from the past who have studied something have never worked in the area they studied. They've been doing something else. What is your take on this?
I think that there are some studies that are very, I would say, there's only one way. I mean, you study medicine, it's 99%, you end up there. If you study several studies, I would say that the natural course, it's pretty fixed. Okay, the rest, I think that there's been a lot of changes in work. First, what is that university or college or wherever you learn give you? It's, as you said, fundamentals and learnings, and how to solve things and how to approach problems in order to solve things. As you said, I studied applied physics, nuclear physics, and I never worked at that. But I had a, let's say, logical, mathematical way of approaching problems. I knew how to code. So getting into technology was quite, I would say, obvious. But I have colleagues that have studied philosophy, other things. So at the end is how you structure your mind and what opportunities do you see. And if you don't have the knowledge, you want to be there, you gain it. I always say that I was behind my peers when I started working and later in my career from the ones who studied computer science or so. Why? Because there were a lot of fundamentals or more complex things that I did not understand at once because I never studied them. What did it mean? That I ate a lot of books at nights, weekends. I was speaking about that yesterday with a friend who started working the same company at the same time. And I explained him a case. I was sent to a new project, and on Friday I bought 2 books. I read the 2 books over the weekend because on Monday I was supposed to be an expert, which I was not. But at least I need to know the basics. And the older and wiser you are, you do that better. So
I think that's a good thing from having been a consultant.
Of course,
you've been pushed in projects where you don't know anything about, but you have been sold up there, and you need to figure it out. So yeah, I recognize it. I really recognize that process of just getting into getting your knowledge quickly as quickly as possible, and reading through the whole weekend to gather that knowledge. So Monday you're prepared to really punch it out.
And since, and I'm pretty sure that other, let's say, works are the same, that things are, thanks to technology and other things, every single work is changing very fast. And I saw my parents studying over weekends when we were young, and I was like, oh, you already have a career, you're doing, and I didn't understand that well. My parents retired 2 years ago, and they keep studying today. If you want to understand things and you want to be on top of things, you need to be updated. And it requires an effort from you. If the way you want to build and live your life is another one, which is, well, what I have is enough, I don't want much more, blah, 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 maybe you don't need that effort. But if your ambition, and it's not just money, it's personal work and so, is to aim higher every time, you need to do your homework. And your homework is work, study, practice, and keep iterating that as much as possible. And then, of course, balance that with your values and how you want to live your life.
Yeah, beautiful. Looking a bit at the time, we're running a bit out of time. So if you would look at what would be, and this is just a close up, what would you advise people to do in, let's say, 3 or 5 steps to build their best life? Could be business, could be private, but what are the 3 to 5 steps you would advise people to start doing now?
So the first is to really analyze yourself and know what you want to do, where you want to be, and what are your tools, what you do good, what you don't do that good, and how to strengthen both of them. Second is you need to put the time and the effort. And then you need to go for the opportunities. The opportunities might come sometimes to you, but you need to go after them. So once you know it's kind of a, it's an approach that is very logical, or let's say a strategy. It's like talking about strategies, where you want to be, what are your tools, what do you need to improve, who are you, what's your network, are the opportunities there or not? Create the opportunities. Sometimes you need to create them yourself.
Exactly.
And keep iterating over those 2, 3, 6 steps. And of course, as I said before, a hint of luck, it's needed any once in a while. But if you're not hard working it, luck will not catch you working, and you will miss that opportunity.
Exactly. Now you're completely right, and I believe that I believe in the impossible. Impossible is always possible if you put the effort in, the elbow grease. You have to find the opportunity, because opportunities don't often come to you. Yeah, you're lucky if they pass by, but generally you need to go and find them. Hey, Jordi, this was again great to be talking to you. I think we can talk about for the next 2 hours about this topic, but that will be a bit too long for the audience, so we will continue later. Is there anything you wanted to add to what you have been explaining today?
I think that you said something now that resonates a lot with me, because I keep buying too many sneakers, and there are two top there are two top brands who have two mottos that I love, which is Nike, just do it, and Adidas, impossible is nothing. So if you mix them both, it's a good aspiration. One is much more aspirational, and the other one is just more executive. But if you mix them both, you should try to get where you want.
Nice. Hey, Jordi, thank you for joining. If people want to connect with you, because I also know, and there's going to be a bit of promotion, Jordi is also hiring for people. I generally don't use the podcast for that, but if you are looking for an interesting job, look him up on LinkedIn. Is there any other way that people can contact you if they want to have more information or connect with you?
It's very easy. I'm quite public on social networks, so either LinkedIn or Twitter are the most common ones. So just ping me, and I always reply.